Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thomas with Alpha Concepts here. Welcome, my friends. I got an email from one of my students, and normally I'll just reply with a quick email response to their question, but this was an involved question. It really has multiple parts, so I wanted to break it down with a video rather than just reply with an email, and it's something that I think a lot of other people can benefit from as well. We're talking specifically about Illinois law here. Reminder, I'm not a lawyer, so nothing I'm saying is legal advice. It's simply what I might do in this given situation. So let's take a look at that email. Let's break down the components and give answers to his question. All right, I have the email here, and if anyone has any questions at any point in time, they can always email me. I'm more than happy to answer your questions to the best of my ability. The email says, "Hey Bill," I'm Tom, by the way, "I have a question for you. What if you're witnessing a crime and you have a concealed carry weapon on you? Can you intervene a criminal act by brandishing your weapon with the intent to prevent a crime from happening?" So obviously, if we see someone getting hurt, many of us, our moral compass, we want to help. We have to understand, again, there's multiple parts to this question. First, what's brandishing? Well, brandish is not defined in Illinois law. Okay, people who have been charged with brandishing. I recall someone a year or two ago who displayed his firearm in a road rage incident, was charged with aggravated assault. Maybe disorderly conduct would be a charge. Again, brandish isn't defined in Illinois law. Some states allow defensive displays of firearms. Illinois doesn't have that in the use of force exonerations, and we'll talk about what the use of force exonerations are. So could you be arrested for displaying your firearm in Illinois? And the answer is yes, you can be arrested for anything. Remember, we are always guilty until proven innocent, whether you like it or not. That's just the way it is. And then the law becomes your defense in court. We often talk about this in class, where our concealed carry classes, when we're discussing the use of force, sometimes the question will come up, can I display my firearm? You do open yourself up to liability. So my answer usually is, if in my house, I would not hesitate. In my house, obviously, there's a difference than being out in the public, out on the streets in the public right of way. Then out in the public, personally speaking, I have a hard time finding a situation where I would actually display my firearm and bark orders. There's a lot of reasons why I personally wouldn't do that out in the public. Number one, you do open yourself up to prosecution. Okay, again, guilty till proven innocent, like it or not. Number two, you have to understand that people watching might not understand that you are the good guy. They might not understand. They're just going to see someone holding a gun, barking orders, and perhaps that person is a police officer. The last thing that I want is the sight picture of a cop or a fellow concealed carry licensee. There are people out there just like yourself that might want to help, might want to do the right thing, what they perceive to be the right thing. And if they make an assumption, if they make the wrong assumption, your life is literally on the line. We have to understand also that when we're aiding other people, when we're involving ourselves in a situation that doesn't involve us, we have to have 100% clarity of that situation. We can't have any gray area, and we can't have any guessing. We have to know 100%, is this the right thing to do? Am I guessing? And if there's not 100%, if you're guessing and if you're assuming, the best thing to do is to be a good witness. We also have to understand, what type of crime is it that you're trying to stop? Okay, if it is a property crime, there was a person up in Michigan, I think it was a few years ago, who shot at a shoplifter at, I think it was a Home Depot. Ultimately, they ended up getting, like, off the top of my head, 18 months probation. It's obviously not recommended to shoot at shoplifters. That's just stupid. Property crimes, definitely don't get involved. Be a good witness. That's the best. That's what I would do. I would not display my firearm at all. If I saw someone getting beaten, that's a little bit different. Illinois law does allow you to defend others, okay? When I read the criminal code and the justified use of force exonerations, it says that I can use force to defend myself or to defend another. When we do talk about property crimes, Illinois law does allow me to use force to defend my property, but it also does allow me to use force to defend the properties of immediate family members only, so not some stranger out on the street. I also want to talk to you about reality. Your concealed carry license is not a Superman cape. It is not a bulletproof full body suit. You can get hurt. You can get killed. We know that 30 to 40% of the time, armed defenders, people just like you and I, end up injured or killed. So you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? That's a question that you've got to ask, and only you can answer. So again, we know 30 to 40% of the time you can end up injured or killed. But again, if you make the wrong assumption, you can end up in jail. Two stories you probably don't remember. It's been a few years since you took my class. Two stories I always like to tell in our concealed carry classes about a guy standing out in a parking lot. He hears shots ring out, and he ducks behind his car. He's got his concealed carry license. This happened outside of Illinois, before Illinois even got concealed carry. He sees a guy shooting at two guys shooting back at the guy. He makes a decision based upon assumptions and prejudices that this is the bad guy. He takes the shot, and it turned out to be an undercover police officer trying to make a drug buy from the two guys, okay? Obviously, now he's in jail. He did what he thought was the right thing, but my dad said the road to hell is paved with good intentions, okay? So you've got to have 100% clarity of the situation. The second story that I like to tell is a similar situation where a guy standing out in a parking lot has his concealed carry license, has his firearm on him, and he sees a woman come running right past him full speed. And a few seconds later, a guy comes running right past him full speed. The woman turns the corner, the guy turns the corner, and then he hears the woman yelling, "Help, rape, help, help." He grabs his firearm, he runs around the corner, he says, "Stop, get off of her, I've got a gun." Noticing that they're fully clothed, the guy holding her down turns, looks over his shoulder, says, "Put the gun away, I'm a cop. She just tried to rob that store." Obviously, she was lying, and she was trying to get someone like him to help her. Had he shot, he too would likely be in jail. He was an off-duty cop working security at the store that she had just tried to rob, okay? So could a criminal lie? Absolutely. Absolutely a criminal could lie. The difference in the story is he's got clarity of the situation by using his words. I might not have even taken my firearm out if that was going to be the case until I got clarity of the situation. At the point that he said, "Get off of her," a couple things could have happened. Obviously, in this situation, the guy says, "Hey, I'm a cop." The guy could have jumped up and ran away, and in which case, problem solved. The guy could have turned around, charged at me, and then in that case, I'm defending myself. I'm not defending her any longer. I have clarity of the situation. It's black and white. There's no gray area. So we have to think about that. Also, we have to think about the 5 aftermaths of a use of force situation, right? We have to think about what could potentially happen to us after the use of force situation. There could be, we're opening ourselves up to the criminal. We're opening ourselves up to the civil liability. We're going to have a mental aftermath. We're likely to have a social aftermath. And certainly there's going to be a financial aftermath. So we've got all those things that we need to work on and we need to calculate, is it worth it for us to get involved to aid this person? That's only a question you can answer. I'm going to give you my moral compass. My moral compass, and you can disagree, but I'm just throwing that out there so that people can kind of food for thought. I have a hard time knowing, again, 30 to 40% of the time that I could end up injured or killed. I have a hard time putting my life on the line to defend the life of someone else who has the same abilities as I do, and that part's important, who has the same abilities as I have, but instead chooses to be a victim. Well, what do you mean? Nobody chooses to be a victim. People do. People do choose to be a victim. You know, every student who has come through my concealed carry class has chosen they do not want to be a victim. That's why they sign up for the class. They choose. They don't want to be a victim. You know, some people are fundamentally opposed to firearms, and that's fine. That's their choice. But there are other options out there, and indeed, I encourage even everybody who carries a concealed firearm to carry a less lethal option, because not all use of force situations are lethal use of force situations, right? So take a self-defense class, carry pepper spray, even a flashlight could aid you in a self-defense situation. So people who have the idea that it's not going to happen to me, well, it's not going to happen to me is not a good self-defense strategy. Nearly every victim didn't think it was going to happen to them. So obviously we see how it turned out for them. So I carry to defend myself and my family. And again, I have a very hard time risking my life to defend those who choose to be victims if they have the same abilities as I do. And let me clarify. If someone's shooting up a school, am I going to intervene? Yeah, absolutely. Those kids and even the staff are disarmed by law. They don't have the same abilities as I do. If I saw an elderly or a disabled person getting beat up, would I intervene? Probably. But if I saw someone approximately the same age, approximately the same size, you know, maybe not, but most likely not. I'm going to be a good witness. I'm going to call the police. I might even give orders as I'm behind cover. But again, I'm going to have a hard time risking my life to defend someone who has the same abilities as I do. Now, if I'm in my house, would I display my firearm? Hey, get out of my house. Stop. Get out. Get out. Sure, because again, in your house, it's your house. You're going to have a little bit more leeway, so to speak, in the eyes of the court, in my opinion, in your house, right? Plus, you don't have some yahoo who might think that you're the bad guy and take a shot at you, and you're not going to have a law enforcement officer, you know, accidentally stumble upon you as you've got the gun displayed and think you're the bad guy. I don't want anyone to think I'm the bad guy. As far as I'm concerned, out in the public, presenting my firearm is all part of that first trigger press, okay? I like to play poker, and I don't play poker with my cards up. So I'm not going to display that firearm, let people know what I'm working with until I absolutely have no choice. Some people will say that law enforcement can display their firearm and they can de-escalate the situation. The thing is, they're not de-escalating the situation. They are escalating the situation. And while law enforcement may escalate, we may not. We can only meet force with equal force. We are not law enforcement. We can only meet force with equal force or lesser. If lesser, we'll get the job done. So if I was in your situation, again, I don't know what the exact crime is. That's something that needs to be identified. If it was someone who I loved who was getting assaulted, I might. If it was a stranger, I'm going to be a good witness. That's just me. If it's a property crime, I'm going to be a good witness. There's very few situations in public that I'm going to draw my firearm and display it with an intent to intimidate, and that is the United States Code definition of brandish. Let's take a look at that real quick. The United States Code 18924, it says, for purposes of the subsection, the term brandish means, with respect to a firearm, to display all or part of the firearm or otherwise make the presence of the firearm known to another person in order to intimidate that person, regardless of whether the firearm is directly visible to that person. So why are you displaying the firearm? Are you trying to intimidate? Possibly, right? But you're trying to intimidate them for what you believe to be the good reason. Again, that's the criminal code. That's the United States Code. The Illinois Criminal Code does not define brandish. You could be charged with assault, aggravated assault, disorderly conduct. Who knows what they might throw at you, but you do open yourself up to some kind of prosecution. So what would your lawyer argue on your behalf? Well, your lawyer would argue on your behalf the Illinois Criminal Code justified use of force exoneration. So let's take a look at those. So Illinois allows for the justified use of force in defense of person, justified use of force in defense of dwelling, that's your home, and justified use of force in other property. And it reads, a person is justified in the use of force against another when and to the extent that he reasonably believes that such conduct is necessary to defend himself or another against such other's imminent use of unlawful force. However, he is justified the use of force which is intended or likely to cause death or great bodily harm only if he reasonably believes that such force is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm to himself or to another or to the commission of a forcible felony. And forcible felony is the worst of the worst. So as you see, we can use simple force to defend against simple force. A kick, a punch, a push, a slap, a shove. Those things are examples of what I like to call simple force. But you can only use force which is intended or likely to cause death or great bodily harm against force which is intended or likely to cause great bodily harm. Which means if you see some people fighting and they're just slapping and pulling hair, displaying your firearm is escalating. That's not lethal force. Definitely, you would be escalating the situation. It would be hard for you or your lawyer to articulate why you're using lethal force against simple force. So obviously not advised. In addition, it says you can defend another, but we have to understand you have no duty to defend another. Not even the law enforcement has duty to defend another. There have been numerous federal court cases that have stated that law enforcement has no duty to put themselves in harm's way to defend another. And we've seen that time and time again. We saw it at the Parkland School, the Uvalde School. Obviously, police have no duty to defend. I always tell everyone, you are your own your own first responder. It is your duty to defend yourself. So that's use of force in defense of person. That's something that your lawyer could argue if you were ever charged. Hey, this is why my client did what he did. He was justified. There's also use of force in defense of dwelling. Let's take a look at that. Use of force in defense of dwelling reads, a person is justified in the use of force against another when and to the extent that he reasonably believes that such conduct is necessary to prevent or terminate such other's unlawful entry into or attack upon a dwelling. However, he is justified the use of force which is intended or likely to cause death or great bodily harm only if the entry is made or attempted in a violent, riotous, or tumultuous manner. In my layman opinion, that would be like kicking in the door or throwing a brick through the window. And you reasonably believe that such force is necessary to prevent an assault upon or offer of personal violence to him or another within the dwelling. So it's still defense of person. Or he reasonably believes that such force is necessary to prevent the commission of a felony within the dwelling. So when we look at the defense of your dwelling, again, that's your home, it talks about you can use force if the entry is made in a violent manner and you believe that they are there to cause harm to someone within a dwelling. Now, all violent entries are done for violent purposes. It could be a wellness check or something like that. You kick in the door because you saw your elderly neighbor laying on the floor. That would be considered a violent entry done for righteous purposes. Or you want to prevent the commission of a felony within the dwelling, and a felony is any crime that's punishable by a year or more in jail. I generally tell students, property crimes become gray areas. Me personally, it would have to be a significant value for me to use lethal force to stop someone. Defending life is black and white. It becomes a very simple choice. Shoot to defend life, not stuff. So again, in your home, could you use force to defend another? Yes, you could. Absolutely. We also have use of force in defense of other property in Illinois, and let's look at that. Use of force in defense of other property reads, a person is justified in the use of force against another when and to the extent that he reasonably believes that such conduct is necessary to prevent or terminate such other's trespass on or other torturous or criminal interference with either real property other than your dwelling, real property meaning real estate, or personal property which is lawfully in your possession or in the possession of another who is a member of your immediate family or household, or of a person whose property you have a legal duty to protect. So when we look at that, again, focusing on can you defend your property? Sure. Can you defend the property of another? Well, it says if they are a member of your immediate family or household, or someone who you have a legal duty to protect, such as if you're a security officer or something like that. So you could use force to defend other property. Again, property becomes gray area. I generally would be pretty hesitant to use lethal force. I don't want to open myself up to the criminal, the civil, the mental, the social, or the financial aftermath of shooting to protect replaceable stuff in most cases. You've got to make a decision what's right for you. I can only tell you what the law says. I gave you my moral compass. I gave you a few tidbits of advice. If anyone watching this has any input, I definitely encourage you to leave a comment. If you have any questions that you want me to answer either by email or on video, definitely don't hesitate to shoot an email and I'll do my best to give you the best answer that I can come up with. As always, everybody, be armed, be trained, and be alpha.